Oh, no wonder. Hey everybody, I am Tommy and you are on The Love Boat. I'll tell you what, this one is going to be talked about for a really, really, really long time. And yeah, this is one of those verdicts that people are going to question. Taylor Miller, good to see you. Glad that you're here. This is going to be one of those things. Hey, Scooby Lee, Helsinki. Oi, oi, big up, huh? Hold on. Sorry, that did not want to open at all. So the Sean Diddy Combs verdict is in. And hey, Smitty, Lindy, good to see you. Marie, what's happening? Clifton Ferguson, how you doing? Curtis, good to see you. Could you do me a favor, somebody, and give me a 5x5 if I sound okay and I look okay? And what I mean by that is not if I look okay, but if the quality of the film is good. Lisa Ayers, how are you? Hey, Roberta, glad that you're here. Maria, what's happening? I am Shailene. Come on, Shailene. Shocked, right? Okay. Well, I'm shocked that there's a 5x5. I'm shocked that there's a 5x5. A lot of people are going to be shocked. A lot of people are going to be shocked. Here's the thing. Hey, Lisa Trimble, good to see you. I know everyone is shaking their head. I know everybody right now is shaking their head. It's crazy what they've come to, right? With all of the money Diddy has, it's not surprising he got off, says Helsinki. Well, I'll tell you something. Now, this is interesting, and it's sad, but it's interesting. So you guys know that when the jury goes into the back room and they begin the deliberation process, they send notes out through the bailiff to the judge, and they can request stuff like, Your Honor, we'd like to see the testimony. We'd like it reread back into us when this person was on the stand, or we would like to see the crime scene photos. Sometimes they need more to help them deliberate. One of the things, R. McGrath says he will take revenge on people. You're not the first person to say that, and I think that that's probably pretty scary. You haven't heard, Marie, I'm sorry. Sean Combs was found guilty on 2 of the charges and not the big ones. So he was found guilty. Yeah, Helsinki says money talks in America. Oil ways has been that way. Yeah. So here's the deal. This is really what it comes down to. He is facing 2 10-year prison sentences. Hello, Kristen Melinda. Good to see you. Narcoleptic Chihuahua Productions. I hope you had a safe flight and hope you're home safely. Here's the thing. So as I was saying, you can reach out to the judge and you can say, Your Honor, we have a question on this, or can you send this back? Hey, Relatable Reese, how are you? Jane Alders, glad that you're here. One of the things that they said, I believe it was the second day of deliberations. It may have been the first, so if I'm misquoting that, I apologize. But one of the things that was said was they were having a problem with one juror, a juror that, according to them, was refusing to follow the instructions put out by the judge, right? The juror instructions. That gives me the willies. It really does. The fact that there was one person that the rest of the jury felt so messed up about that they felt the need to say to the judge, hey, man, this juror won't follow instructions. We don't know what that means. That could be in either direction. It was going to be a tall order to convict on the RICO charge. Not because I don't think he's guilty on it, because I absolutely think that it met the burden of proof for RICO. But under the best of circumstances, explaining RICO to people is a very difficult concept. And everybody, the average person, I should say, not everybody, but the average person, their only exposure, I agree with you. R. McGrath says that person should have been replaced with another new juror. And they do have alternates, right? So boot that person off. I think that's kind of a legitimate takeaway, right? Now, I know that it's easy to go into conspiracy theory mode, but most of us watched a lot of that trial. I can see them not being able to bring back a guilty verdict on the charge of RICO. RICO is a difficult thing to explain, and we're used to seeing it used against John Gotti. We're used to seeing it used against gangsters. And in the United States of America, most people kind of assume that RICO was put together and it was created to go after organized crime. And it was. If you want my humble opinion, they couldn't get John Gotti. You know, they weren't able to get John Gotti, and they decided, hey, Scooby Lee, Barbara Aldrich, good to see you. Jane, good to see you. Lost again, what's happening? Hey, Lindy, will he get to go home today? No. Anthony Ray, good to see you. He could. I shouldn't say no. I really shouldn't say no. In theory, by the way, he still is looking at 2 charges that he is going to have to do time on. They carry 10 years on each of these. Now, he could get it so that he only has to do 10, and they let those 2 run at the same time. That's kind of a rarity if, in my experience, when you, they're not happy when somebody doesn't take a deal. Diddy was offered a deal. He could have gotten 20 years by pleading in the beginning. Archie's mom, good to see you. Jesse O, what's happening? May sound stupid, but how does Danny Masterson get life and Diddy get a max of 20 years? I want to tell you something. That doesn't sound stupid at all. In fact, that may be one of the better questions. Danny Masterson got 30 years is what he got. He didn't get life. However, 30 years when you're 40 or 50 isn't a life sentence, but it's a hell of a lot of your life sentence, right? I think Diddy's probably going to get, Lumen, good to see you. I think that Diddy probably will have to do 20 years in prison. I don't think that, and I could be wrong. I am not, I'm probably not the smartest. However, the reason that there were 2 counts is because there were 2 victims. I believe that Room Subramanian, that was the judge, I believe that he's a fair person. I believe that he is an intelligent person. And I think that he is a solid judge. And I don't believe there's a lot of them. This is really the takeaway, isn't it? I mean, honestly, is it? SoCal friend, good to see you. This is the takeaway, is it not? I feel very sad for the ladies. I hope he gets the max for the 2 charges. Well, here's the deal. The reason that Diddy didn't take the 20-year deal when they put it on the table, right? He was facing the rest of his life in prison. And he turned down a 20-year deal. The reason he did is because Diddy doesn't think he can do 20 years. I mean, bottom line, he was a guy that didn't think he was going to be able to survive 20 years in prison. And he's probably going to get 20 years in prison. As bad as this verdict is, it's going to be worse if they take the 10 sentences and let them run, I mean, the 10-year sentence and let them run at the same time. That's a slap in the face to one of the 2 victims, right? So I believe that we're probably going to see somewhere along the lines of the 20 years. I don't know that for a fact. I really don't. How much do I think Diddy had to pay for his law team? Tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions of dollars. Ann from Massachusetts says, it's sad that justice doesn't seem to have happened. I'll tell you something. When will he be charged for 10 years? Has judge set his time? So the way it works in the federal system, he will not be sentenced today, right? You go in and you're found guilty or whatever, and then a sentencing is put out for a later date is usually how that works. Arabian Bard, good to see you. Can he appeal those charges? Absolutely, he can appeal those charges. And that's an excellent question. A lot of times in the feds, like if he were to have taken the deal, anytime you plead guilty to anything in the feds, it's very difficult. You're giving up your right to appeal. He didn't do that. He went all the way to the box, is the term that convicts use. He went to trial. So he can appeal those, and I would imagine that the appellate the appellate lawyers that he's hired are probably already working on the appeals. I don't think he has a shot everybody right from the word go kind of assumed that there were certain charges that, look, he flew people across state lines, right, for the purpose of, there's just no getting around that. In order to defend himself, he had to admit to that. Well, not he. His team had to admit that they were guilty of this to try to defend, right, the rest. So this was kind of thought of as a lock. Why am I sitting here thinking he won't get much time? Because the justice system is a joke, no faith. I agree with you, Roberta. I agree with you. And I'm doing everything I can do every day to not talk bad about the United States of America. I grew up there. But you know, when you move to another country and you're really excited about where you live, you tend to try to start comparing the two. And I never want to come off as an America hater, right? That's not the reason that I left America. I didn't leave America because I hated it. But this is one of the reasons I left America. I'm not kidding. Because the legal system in America is a joke. I'm sorry, it's a joke. America has become the most litigious society in the world, meaning that, you know, hey, Tony Suter, good to see you. Looking clear today. How good is that? Lawsuits are a way of making a living. You will listen to radio spots or see TV spots that say, been in a wreck, want to get paid quick. It's thought of as like a lottery ticket, right? It's a society where if somebody rear ends the back of your car, right, the first thing you do is grab your neck and tell them that, you know, you need an attorney, right? Where am I? I am in South America. I have moved to Ecuador. So yeah, I no longer live in the United States. If you guys are, you hadn't heard that, I have emigrated. I'm not on vacation. This is where I live. We bought a home. And you know what? Up until 30 seconds before I went live, I had a cat in this basket. Squirrel Nut Zipper was in the basket, and she was in there the whole time I was setting stuff up. I didn't put her in it. I just set the basket down next to me, and she immediately jumped in. Little Miss Sunshine, good to see you. How are you? If he appeals, is there any way he could be and get more time? No. Yes. Yes and no. There's a cap that carries no more than 10 years. However, there have been times in the past, I remember one in particular, where an individual who was I say these words, they demonetize me, but I don't care. I'm so tired of playing those games. Hey, Renee B, guy was a terrorist, and he got a very long sentence. And it was, I don't remember, it was 27 or 28 or something. And he made a very big deal and was in the press about it. I was in prison at the time. And he went back to try to get resentenced because he said that he thought the sentence was ridiculous. And when he got there, the judge said, I agree with you. The sentence is ridiculous. It should have been longer. And he got an appeal and went there, and the judge gave him more time. But it is, Squirrel Nut, come over here, Squirrel. But it's a very rare thing. And in this case, these happen to carry a maximum. There is a maximum of 10 years. So in theory, he could be given less time than that. It's not going to happen. It's not. So judges are human beings, and there's a lot of people who are, the whole world's angry about this. I mean, there's a handful of Diddy supporters, but for the most part, the whole world is pissed. Arizona says goodbye and happiness. You know, you go from very, very hot and very, very dry to a lot cooler and some humidity. But I am, if you're just seeing this for the first time, I am on the ocean. In fact, if I look out the window right now, there's a swim competition happening in Salinas, Ecuador, and you can see it right from our balcony. Heather Rhodes, good to see you. Yeah, so I don't see that happening, Lisa Trimble. He can't get more than 10. But yesterday, somebody asked me about the firearm charges. There are other things that the federal government could decide to prosecute Diddy on. Because they didn't charge him with something at the time of, doesn't mean they couldn't decide tomorrow to charge him for other crimes. And I question about that. Will there be protection made for the lady's safety? Because if he were Because if this were me, I would be looking for witness protection. You know what? The sad answer is no, there will not be. Hello, Lisa Smith, how are you? Will he get bail today? Is that not the $1 million question? Elizabeth Holmes, you guys remember her? Hold on, let me help. You guys remember Elizabeth Holmes? She had a, she was a, you'll love this one, she was a con artist. She had a thing where she said you could take someone's blood and put it into this, magic machine, and that machine would tell you every single thing that was wrong with that person, right? Plain and simple. I heard in the video that he could be out as early as 1 p.m. today. Well, if they were to grant him bail, right? It's not pro forma, right? It's not something where they say, oh, absolutely, we're going to give you bail until your sentencing. Sometimes that's allowed and sometimes it's not. For instance, it sure as hell never was allowed with me, right? Now, he's very, very wealthy, but he's also a flight risk. And he is an individual that has made it pretty clear he doesn't want to do any time, right? He was offered a deal at a time where he was facing life and he didn't take that deal. He is a uber flight risk. And the fact that they didn't let him out on bail when he was willing to put up hundreds of millions of dollars in his homes and hire a private security firm and all of that, will they let him out until sentencing? You know what? If you had asked me 3 days ago, I probably would have said no chance in hell. But I have zero faith in the justice system of the United States of America. Sorry, but that is the truth. Little Miss Sunshine says, I was wondering about the weapons with no serial numbers. That's right. He had guns where they had obliterated serial numbers. These guns were capable of taking large capacity magazines, and in some cases had large capacity magazines sitting right there. They passed laws concerning how many bullets were allowed in a gun. And he had what they call drums. So if you remember the old gangster movies where the guy would come out with the chopper, right? And they had the big Tommy gun with the barrel thing. Well, they make those for the AR-15 style weapons. And sometimes it's one big barrel and sometimes there's actually one on each side. But allegedly, he had, he had in the house weapons where large capacity up to 50 to 100 rounds of ammunition. You're not hunting with that, right? I mean, what are you hunting? A deer with a flak jacket? It doesn't make much sense. When is the sentencing? I have not heard. Normally it is put out, it's put out long enough for there to be what's called a PSI, right? A pre-sentence, or PSR, they call it the feds, a pre-sentence report. Feds messed up big time. Well, Lindy, did the feds mess up big time? Or do you think that the jury did? I think that they proved the case of RICO. I do. But unfortunately, and you could hear this from people long before anybody started to deliberate, you heard individuals saying, this was never a RICO case. It never should have been a RICO case. Because people want this. It needs to make sense in their head. And you hear people say, how can you have a RICO case with only one person? You could have a RICO case with one person. And this wasn't maybe explained well enough by the prosecution, in my opinion, because you say, well, there has to be an enterprise, Tommy. So there had to be other people. Well, if I run a company and I've got 200 employees, right, and each one is serving me in a way that when all of this comes together, it's an illegal enterprise. But I think everybody wanted to see KK, Christina Karam. They wanted to see where those other people were. Like, if this is RICO, well, then there should be a crap load of people charged. That's normally how it works. A RICO case, they will charge, let's say, most of the time when RICO comes up, it's because there's a murder involved, right? A lot of times that's what we see. Back in the day, you would get, the jury will never talk. They are forever under deep suspicion. The jury will write a book. A lot of these people, in my opinion, Alex, and I could be wrong, man, it will not be the first time, but I think that they're going to write a book, and they're going to, golly, I hope they talk. And the reason I say that is one of these people reached out and said to the judge, I mean, one of the things that they said was, we have a juror here that will not follow the jury instructions. For all we know, by the way, for all we know, everybody there wanted him not guilty, and that one juror was going in the opposite direction. We don't know, and we won't until somebody talks. But the way that RICO first really popped up on the scene was so that if you're the head of the mafia, right, and I run the Scoville family, and I've got, you know, below me I have the lieutenants, and below those there are captains, and they run their own little teams or whatever, and I want this guy Todd murdered. So from my mouth, it goes down the chain of command to one of the lowest guys on the run who needs to make his bones. That guy goes out and makes the murder. Well, that guy could get caught and go to prison. And back in the day, omerta, right, the rule of silence, would protect the person, especially the one at the top. Even if that guy ratted, he would rat on the person above him who gave him who ordered the hit. That guy in the bottom didn't talk to the Godfather, right? There's a chain of command. Now, to be able to charge everybody in there with the murder, right? That really gave them a power that they had never had before. What a great question. Is it going to be consecutive or concurrent, right? Now, if they run them concurrent, then he would only do 10 years in prison. If he runs them consecutive, or back-to-back, convicts call it running wild, bow-legged, right? There's a lot of terms for it. But consecutive sentence means he would have to do, after he killed the first 10-year sentence, then he would have to do another 10-year sentence. Are the names public? Who was the jury duty? No, the names are not made public, but this is going to be, there is so much opportunity for somebody to make a lot of money. You know, there's such an opportunity for someone to make so much money writing a book about what happened in that jury room. I'm buying it, right? I'd buy it in a heartbeat. This is a sad day for America, for American jurisprudence. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Now, I know a lot of us are in our feelings about this. I sure as hell am. Taylor Miller, I'm so worried about the victims who testified. Yeah, legitimately, in my opinion. In answer to your question, I think that they're going to be consecutive sentences, which means he would have to do 85% minimum on those. So 10-year sentence, 8.5 years, so 17 years. Now, nobody, and I mean nobody, ever keeps their good time, especially in a federal prison. It's almost impossible. It really is. It's almost impossible. They design it in such a way that they write you up for the littlest things. You lose your good time for the littlest things. Do I think that the jury were paid off? I think one of them was. That's just an opinion thing. And it's a horrible thing to accuse somebody based on nothing. But we're not basing that on nothing. We're basing it on the fact that allegedly he bragged about how he shot in that nightclub and paid off the juror, at least one. But that jury was bought. He bragged about that. That would be the nightclub shooting where J-Lo was there and Natanya Rubins ended up with a bullet in her face. So my experience in the federal system has been this. If they offer you a deal and you don't take it, you would assume that you're facing a 10-year sentence. And you say, they say, here's the deal and we'll offer you 5 years. When you don't take the deal, they do everything they can to make your sentence as ugly as possible, as long as possible, because you cost them time and money. And damn it, they gave you a chance to make this easy. In fact, when you do plead guilty on the sentencing guideline sheet, they drop you 3 levels. So you're going to get less time if you plead guilty, always. He is a danger to society, says Lindy. I tend to believe with you. 100% I agree with you. I'll tell you something, though. for those who are in their feelings, right? And my feelings are hurt. I'm sure yours are. Here's where we can take a little bit of joy on this. His life's over. I'm sorry, it is. He's not going to ever live the life that he did. There's no chance on God's green earth this guy ever goes back to what he was, not at any level. Do you understand? It is horrible that I hope inmates, is it horrible that I hope inmates get him? I think a lot of people are thinking that today, honestly. The jury was not sequestered. That was a problem with me from the start. And I know that for reasons that some of you know and some of you don't, I stopped covering this trial. That was one of the things that bummed me out from the word go. We sequestered the O.J. Simpson jury because we, being the United States of America, I guess I should say you now, the United States of America sequestered the jury in the O.J. case because they were afraid that the newspapers and all of the stuff on the television was going to affect their decision. The internet was a baby, right? There was really, there was America Online and only a handful of people that were even on that. This jury probably should have been sequestered. The fact that these people could go home at the end of the day and get on their phones and look up, things, read about RICO or read about this, see what people on the street are saying. None of that should have been involved because this case was so high profile and so many people were talking about it. You're going to hear a lot of people say this was a win for Sean Combs. And make no mistake, it is. It is a win for Sean Combs. However, this guy can't do time. I'm telling you, this guy can't do time. And I would imagine he's terrified right now that he's going to have to go away for a long time, right? Someone could follow the jurors home every day. Renee B., you're 100% correct. And they could either threaten them or they could offer him a crap load of money. And you know something? Allegedly, when they went and searched his cell at MDC Brooklyn, they found a list of the people that he thought could be paid off or people he thought could be threatened. Dinky Magic says this trial was a joke, so weak and piss poor compared to the real goings on. He's evil and will never change. Well, he won't change. They don't. The people who do this kind of stuff continue to reoffend forever. This has been documented, right? People don't commit one of these offenses. They will continue to do them their entire life. Tommy, will you call into Sean Atwood tonight? Lionel is going to. It starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I may do that. I love Lionel. I love both of them. I may do that. Little Miss Sunshine says, I'm thinking he won't be treated very well inside. Here's the problem with that. Because normally I would say you're absolutely right. This is going to give him an opportunity to say, you know what? I wasn't guilty. It's going to give him a little bit of wiggle room with the fellas. Now, this is crazy, right? Because it's a two-edged sword. If he feels so comfortable that he decides to go into general population, then he's in wicked danger. This guy needs to go into protective custody because of his fame. Even if his crimes weren't what they were, he would need protective custody because of his fame. Now, Sean Combs is my age, almost exactly. I have been to federal prison. Twice I've been to federal prison. I could not do 20 years right now. If I had to go back and do a 20-year sentence in the feds, I couldn't do it. At my age, there's no way I'd make it. I just wouldn't. I'm sorry, I would probably bump myself off. You got to think about how this guy lived. You understand what I'm saying? Think about how this guy lived. I did 13 years in prison over the course of all of the time that I've done. And now I'm in a very nice apartment on the top floor of an apartment that's looking out over the ocean. This is how Diddy lived his life, right? Now he's going to prison. He lived like not a rich person. He lived like an emperor. He lived like a king. He lived like a guy that did anything that he wanted, right? Nothing was going, if he wanted it, he did it. And I think that he's terrified that he now has to go and give up all of that. MDC Brooklyn was tough on him, to be sure it was. But he was put into protective custody with some other guys who were kind of famous, right? This is a very different situation. You were presumed not guilty, right? Blah, blah, blah. The fellas don't always buy into all that. But he was very protected in a very small unit. Now he's going to go to a prison that has 1,300 people in it, right? At a minimum. Nah, I shouldn't say that. But somewhere between 900 and 1,300 people in most federal prisons. I don't think the guy can do it. I think mentally this is going to destroy him. His empire is destroyed. His reputation is destroyed. But I don't think, what are the chances he gets off on bail and time served? Zero. Zero chance that he gets time served and goes home on that. Zero chance. Zero chance. Feds are not going to let that happen. Room Subramanian is, and I don't take this lightly. I think he is a legitimately solid judge that is an honorable man and one who honestly believes in the legal system. Let's talk about the Karen Reed trial for 30 seconds, right? How about Auntie Bev, right? Auntie Bev is no Room Subramanian. He has, in my opinion, a chip on his shoulder about Sean Combs. He's heard every single thing. He's read all of it. No. Nah, this is interesting, isn't it? This is interesting, isn't it? Someone said, well, praise the Lord for that, right? Okay. If you're talking to the Lord, you might want to remind him that this, right? This gun charge, as far as I'm concerned, that's still out there. What's to stop the feds? And I said in the very, very beginning, maybe they're leaving that back just in case. Because I'm telling you, those firearms with obliterated serial numbers and large capacity magazines, they could charge him with that. You understand? They could charge him with that tomorrow. They could charge him with that in 2 weeks. Something could come up, evidence could come out, and they could charge him with other stuff. That would not be double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is being charged for the same double jeopardy is being charged again for a crime you were found not guilty on. Those guns were never mentioned, right? They may have shown a picture of him, but he was never charged with it. And throughout the entire thing, I kept thinking to myself, why, right? Why didn't they not do the gun thing? Little Miss Sunshine says, Bev is the worst judge I've seen to date. I guess most biased at least. Yeah, I was really blown away by just how out in the open she was with the whole, I don't give a crap. I'm going to fix this for the cops. That was the way that whole thing looked to me. Hey, squirrel. Come here, squirrel. I just saw a cat out of the corner of my eye. It's going to show you guys a little proof of life. But I do believe that he's probably looking at 20 years. I can't imagine living in my bathroom with a cellmate for any amount of time. I want to tell you something. The best way to put this, in my opinion, here, let me see if I can, because that comment is worth putting up. If I can, I'm so bad with a mouse, people, you have no idea. I shouldn't even be allowed to use one. But it's more like living in a walk-in closet, right? Depending on which kind of prison he goes to. They kind of standardized the size of the cells in the Bureau of Prisons, in the federal system. I have a hair growing up my left nostril right now from my goatee, from my mustache that's driving me insane. They have standardized the size of the cells, and they are small. They are really small. The average walk-in closet in the United States is about the same size. They go about 13 or 14 feet in and about 7 or 8 feet wide. It's a very small box. It has 2 bunk beds and a metal toilet and sink combination. It also has a desk with a chair that is built in kind of swings out. It's a little just round disc on a piece of metal. Sometimes they're welded into place, but only in larger cells. Normally they have it swing because the cell is so narrow, they want you to be able to push that in. However, you have to be able to go outside and sit in the day room and watch a television set if you want. So also in that cell are 2 plastic chairs, the kind you would see anywhere, the stackable kind. A little bit better built than the ones you might see just anywhere because they don't want them broken and turned into weapons. But by the time you just put all of that in the cell, there is nowhere to move. You understand? How must poor Cassie be feeling? I thought about that. And then I thought about 30 million reasons that Cassie is probably feeling a little better than a lot of the other victims. Cassie at least has been paid a lot of money, and I'm not saying that makes it okay or right or anything else, but he's going to go away. And he is already, now time served, he is going to get credit for this time served. He is. That's the good news for him. The bad news for him is he doesn't have a year, right? He won't be a year until September. So it's not like he's getting a bunch of time off. If they were so best case scenario for him in terms of sentence, best case scenario, if everything went perfect for Sean Combs and they took both sentences, ran them at the same time, he'd be looking at a decade. Now, let's say he got all of his good time and was able to keep it. Not likely, especially with a drug habit, right? He'll be able to get drugs. Most yards have drugs on them. He'll fail drug tests. He'll lose good time. I promise you, he'll get in trouble. He'll say things on telephones he's not supposed to. He was already buying people's phone time. He doesn't know how to do time. He's going to lose every bit of his good time. But let's say that he keeps all of his good time. That 10 years goes to 8.5 years. You follow me? And let's say, for the sake of making this easy, that he did have an entire year already in. So best case scenario, he'd be looking at about 8 more years he'd have to give us. Now, I don't think there's a chance. Imagine if you were the judge, right? And if there are 2 counts of this, then there obviously were 2 people that were victimized. You're going to say, we're going to punish him for one of those and not the other. Which one are you punishing him for? I think that these sentences will be stacked one after the other, which would make it a 20-year sentence, right? That would put Mr. Combs looking at best case scenario, keeping all of his good time, 8.5 and 8.5, right? I'm telling you, he is sitting there right now thinking to himself, I can't do this time. I promise you he is. It may feel like a victory to him, but it's rare that they let people out. I saw them let out, what's he going to do the day he gets out? Because I bet he holds a grudge. Yeah. Yeah. I believe that he does. He's a guy that's going to hold a grudge, to be sure. I'll bet you that the people are nervous. But there's a lot that can happen to a guy in a 20-year sentence or 2 10-year sentences. And to Sean Combs, maybe he shouldn't think about it as a 20-year sentence. Maybe he should think about it as 2 10-year-olds, right? The low life. He can't pull 20 years, folks. And I don't mean because people are going to kill him. I don't mean any of that stuff. I don't mean inmate justice. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this was a guy who would say to people at 4 o'clock in the morning, make me some cheesecake, right? Or at 2 a.m., he had a bartender downstairs waiting to mix him a cocktail if he wanted it. He also had people, allegedly, who walked around the house wearing fanny packs. I'm sorry, I know in some countries, but that's the only thing I know to call it. That little baggie that people wear around their waist. He had employees that walked around with those filled with drugs. He had a vicious drug habit. Can the feds take his money? They cannot. Not with these sentences. This is not going to allow the feds to take his money. However, there are a lot of civil lawsuits that were in place. Now, remember the 130 cases? Man, after I kind of went away, I started to read all of those bump bags. Thank you, Lindy. That's what I'm going to call them from now on. Everybody get that? The verdict must make the victims' testimonies seem like nothing. All that stress and trauma relived. I agree, Kellyanne, I really do. But Renee B, I don't think that sounds goofy. This may sound goofy to some, but I hope he finds God and redemption. Honestly, you may not believe this. I hope that for everybody. I am of the firm belief that people, almost everybody, can come back, right, from the things that they've done. The exception to that, honestly, are the kind of crimes that he's done, because those people continue to re-offend. They do. If you look at people that have those kind of crimes, they never have one. Doesn't happen like that. Maybe Lewisburg, yeah, Lewisburg, that would be nice. I think that more likely than not, what we're going to see is someplace like, what is that called? Butner. FCI Butner is more likely where somebody like him would end up. Because of the charges that he was not convicted on the more serious of the charges. And that's a benefit, right, for him. But it also means that his custody level, he has less of an opportunity to be protected, so to speak. If he was sent to a USP, a United States penitentiary, and was on protective custody, this jackass may try to walk the yard. This guy may think that because of how he is, how this happened, that he'll be able to just, wow people with his personality and just go live like a convict and walk the yard. And there are going to be a lot of people out there that would love to make a name for themselves hurting him. There are going to be a lot of people who have spent as much time in prison as he has living the good life. And I think he's the kind of guy that's going to get in there and brag about the famous women that he slept with, the Lamborghinis that he drove, the Ferraris that he had, all of the different properties that he had all over the world. And there will be a group of people that sit around like this going, tell another one, right? Tell us about the time you bought the Ferrari. And there are going to be a couple of fellas standing in the back that are going to get sick and tired of those stories in about 15 minutes. Prison is a sad place. It really is. It is a sad place. There's going to be a lot of people. There are a lot of people that are already waiting for him to get to prison. That's just the truth. I also think the jury could have been scared of what he could do if they found him guilty on the other charges. It's tough to know what is going on in the head of a juror, but I'm not a lawyer, and I've never sat on a jury, and I would never be able to because of my criminal past. But I think it's far more likely, right? I'm just keeping it real. I think it's far more likely that maybe somebody was paid off. I have listened to a lot of trials, and I've seen a lot of verdict while we were waiting on verdicts for a lot of cases. This is sort of it's certainly a hobby, right, of mine. And I've never seen a jury say to a judge, we're having a problem with a juror who is refusing to follow jury instructions. And maybe it's because I know what a dirtbag this guy is, but the first place my head went, even before this morning, I found that out, by the way, last night through Surviving the Survivor. My friends over there at STS Nation, Joel did a short where he was talking about this, and that to me stinks. That to me smells bad. It really does. It smells bad. Now, if that's the case, while he's in there, there are 2 10-year sentences or 1 10-year sentence, depending on what the judge does. But if while he's in there, they find out that he bought a juror, that's going to be a problem, right? Honestly. I don't wish him harm at all, just accountability. Kellyanne, that's beautiful. True justice for victims. All our actions have repercussions. I wonder what idiot will take for him, what it will take for him to look in the mirror. Is it even possible? It's a great question. It really is. It's a great question. A lot of the civil suits that people brought against him, I'm trying to clean up my language and get back to the way I was in the early days of the lifeboat. I think when you hear me cursing a lot, it's not a good indication of where my head is. But I want to yell BS right at the top of my lungs. I feel like I watched this. You guys watched this. I feel like I understand the RICO part. I understand why they would struggle. And I think they proved RICO, but I understand RICO. I've spent a lot of time trying to understand RICO. But if it was unanimous, that would mean they all could have been paid off. See, but here's the thing, and this is a great question, right? This is a great question. All you would really need to do is pay off one juror. And the reason that I say that is if you get one holdout on the most serious of the charges, one holdout would be enough, right? One person who says, nope, nope. And then I could see a juror saying, hey, we got one person who doesn't seem to be following your instructions, Your Honor. Do you put a one in the chat if you know what jury nullification is, right? If you're familiar with this as a term. There was a shooting in the 1980s in the United States of America on the subway. A gentleman by the name of Bernard Getz had been robbed, according to him, hey Jesse O, multiple times he had been robbed on subways. And he bought a gun because if he ever got robbed again, he was going to kill the SOB who robbed him. He said that, made that real clear. Sounds like premeditation, right? A judge can say, here are your jury instructions. And you can go back in there and go, nope. There's another great case where a father had his son enrolled in a karate class. I think it was some kind of martial arts thing. And the guy that was running the class abducted his son and took him away, kidnapped him, and sexually assaulted him while he had this kid on the road. And they got him back. They got the child back alive. And they arrested the guy that had done it. And they were bringing him through an airport. And this is in the old days when you could get into an airport. In other words, you didn't have to have a ticket to a plane. You could just sort of walk to the gate to meet your wife. And there was a guy on the phone. And they're walking the guy, the man accused of molesting the child through the airport. There was actually a reporter there screaming questions at him. And the guy's father hung the phone up and went, bam, and blew the guy's head off on film. Now, a judge would say, if you believe this to be premeditated, right? If you believe that this was a case of premeditated, in other words, if he planned to drive to the airport to do this, you must find him guilty of premeditated murder. That's the jury instructions. That's the law. Then you get back into the jury room, right? And you got 12 people on that jury. And half of them are parents. And of those, 3 or 4 of them are guys. And they're sitting there going, I'd have done the exact same thing if that was my son. I saw that video, and honestly, I understand why the dad did that. So you understand jury nullification, right? That's jury nullification. Lumen says, oh God, I saw that. Yeah. So you would have to find him guilty of first-degree murder, right? Wrong. In the United States, you can just, now, a lawyer cannot, in his closing argument, say, hey, do you know you can go back there and not follow the instructions? It's called jury nullification. And you can just go out there and do whatever you want. They should have sequestered this jury. They should have sequestered this jury. They should have sequestered this jury. Because they had access. Where the heck? If you went home, you couldn't avoid the trial. The judge's instructions to the jury is always the same. Don't watch anything about the case. Don't do. Lumen says, I don't believe that father served time. My understanding is he did not. He was found not guilty. Or if he was found guilty, it was manslaughter or justifiable or whatever, but he sure as hell did not get murder one. Like Bernie Getz, in theory, should have gotten life. He didn't. He didn't. How do you avoid hearing about the Diddy trial if you're on that jury? Honest to God. I mean, unless you're just the most stand up and ethical and honest person where you say, I'm not going to look at this thing. I'm not even going to have it in my pocket until the case is over. You can't turn your phone on, literally, okay? Because you're going to see something pop up about the Sean Puffy Combs case. There's just no way you're not going to. I think the big mistake in this was to not sequester the jury. I also believe that RICO was a tough sell, and I think I think it was legitimate to try him for it. It does, doesn't it, Matt? Do you think they don't sequester because of the cost? No. The jury system, especially in the federal, the legal system, especially in the feds, don't give a shite about money. I promise you they don't. They don't care at all. The reason that they didn't sequester the jury, according to Sub-Romanian, because this was brought up early on. I mean, he said early on why he wasn't going to do it. It is a tough thing to do to a group of 13 people, right? Mom, I'm afraid you're not going to see your kids for the next, I don't know how long. This was a long trial, and the defense didn't even put on a defense, right? At all. So Darrell Brooks wanted to tell his jury, yeah, Lisa Trimble, you know what? That's Darrell Brooks, who represented himself, was trying to say to the jury, explain jury nullification, and the judge went nuts on him. I don't understand why a federal trial of this caliber, who have a jury, I'm in Australia, so I don't understand the American legal system, so forgive me if I sound ignorant. No, you don't sound ignorant. Nobody understands this. I promise you, no matter where you live. The reason that this case was federal was because, first of all RICO charges have to be federal. There's no such thing as a state RICO charge. But Diddy did this all over the country and all over the planet, literally. So he was flying people, it had to be a federal deal. Sounds like he pissed off a big man behind the scenes and just wanted to humiliate him in front of the entire world. You know something? It's hard to, I could make this argument and make it sound really logical. I really could. There was a lawsuit against that massive, the company that, the liquor distributor company that he worked for. There's a lot of people who believe that the second he started to mess with them is when everything went bad. They should come back with the gun charges. How many people are in prison just for possession of a gun? I got news for you. Of all of the time that I've done in prison, I did more time for possession of Ciroc is the name of the product, and the name of the company was, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it was a huge, one of the biggest companies in the world, and a lot of their stock is owned by the same company that owns BlackRock. They're a monster of a company, a European liquor distributor company, massive. Hey, Sharon, they should go back with a gun. They should, and they should also, they should look at everything that they didn't go after. My gun charge got me literally twice as long as the bank robbery did. Separate cases, twice. Yes, Diageo, thank you, Kristen Melinda. Diageo annually makes more money than the gross domestic product of a lot of the countries on this planet. And the one I'm in being one of them. Diageo is a monster. They're a beast. And there has been a theory from early on. We discussed it many times here when this was the lifeboat, where the theory is that once he got them really angry at Diageo was going to protect their investment, right? They were going to. So they probably had him follow. They probably knew more about his lifestyle than anybody in the world. And Cassie Ventura had gone to Sean Combs allegedly years earlier and said, I'm going to write a book if you don't give me some money, blah, blah, blah. And, he basically just said, F you, get away from me kind of a thing. Like almost laughed it off. When she came back the second time, she had a law firm. Everything was very, very organized. And not only a law firm, but the law firm that has handled more cases that were successful during the Me Too movement than any others. And there's a lot of people that are of the belief that this had a lot more to do with money than it had to do with anything else. And it's hard to argue that. The American population is stupid. Every effing population is full of idiots. I do believe that there are idiots everywhere. I don't think this is the fault of stupidity. I really don't believe that this is the fault of stupidity. Just an opinion, just one opinion, one guy talking, but I think it's a logical step, right? I'm not saying 1 + 1 = 67, right? I'm not saying 1 + 1 = 40, but if you start looking at the fact that allegedly when they went and searched his cell, he had a list of the people he wanted to bribe and a list of the people that he wanted to threaten, right? Allegedly. And then add that to the jurors saying to the judge in one of their first correspondence while they were deliberating, hey, we've got this one juror who is refusing to follow your instructions. Well, 1 + 1 starts looking like 2, right? So Elizabeth Holmes, the woman that ripped off all of those people that had the big eyes were always like this, wore a black turtleneck a lot. Everyone is an idiot is such an idiotic statement. Archie's mom, well played. Look, there are smart people in every country on earth. There are dumb people in every country on earth. There are respectful people on every country. There are disrespectful people. Kind of how it goes, right? It really is one of those things. Do you think they have other charges they can bring up? I mean, they do have other charges that they can bring. Whether or not they will choose to do it, we know that they did not go after him for the gun, right? And those guns those are obliterated serial numbers, man. Those carry time, a lot of it. So if he gets 10 years for the charges he's found guilty of, will the feds then go after him for the gun charges? They can. Paula D. Pendley, they can. However, One Love says, this is honestly so discouraging. I agree with you. And this is going to be hard for a lot of people. I agree with you. I really do. This is tough. You know what, Gordon Jackson? This is pretty astute. I think there's a lot. All of you are bringing up points that show you guys are, no idiots in this group. The jury was under so much pressure because P. Diddy wanted a speedy trial. I think that the fact that they wanted a speedy trial was probably an issue for the prosecution more than anyone else, forcing them to go through the amount of stuff that they had to go through was, that's tough. Combs was reported to have cracked open a big smile at his family before the verdict was out. I thought that was weird. So do I. However, he has allegedly bragged about buying one jury. And if you were going to buy a jury that, this is, this is a guy that allegedly was close to being a billionaire at one point. And I think he would have given up all of that money if it would have kept him free. Yes, absolutely. So the weapons that he had were, people use the term automatic weapons, and it's a misnomer, right? Automatic weapons, you pull the trigger once and bullets just keep coming out. You never have to pull it again. So they are semi-automatic weapons, but they were capable. You don't even have to have a large capacity magazine. Trust me, this was part of my charges. Just the fact that the gun can take a high capacity magazine is a problem. He not only had those alphabet weapons, AR, AK, right, Uzis, those kind of things, MAC-10s, guns that could take all kinds of bullets. I believe the ones that he had were of the AR and AK variety. And allegedly, they had 50 round or 100 round drums. So there was actually there were high capacity magazines there. Pissed off is what I am now. I believe you, and I don't blame you. This is a great point. Not surprised, media blew it up to be huge and name dropped a bunch of celebrities that when the case was actually presented, it didn't seem that big a part of the plan. I'm not sure about the, honestly, I don't know how the celebrity thing played in, but I do know that this was blown up so big that I think that the effect on that is twofold. Number one, everybody in America convicted him on the evidence of discussing everything that we heard prior to him going into court. However, before you take that to mean that I think the guy is innocent, I then watched the prosecution put on their case, and to me, it was pretty obvious. It really was. This is an opinion. Everybody hear me? This is an opinion. I think this probably had something to do with jury tampering. That's my opinion. Tommy, if you or I had that weapon, what would we get? I'm thinking 20 years. What are your thoughts? I'd get life in prison. If I got caught with any of those weapons, I'm not joking. If I got caught, now I have a criminal record, but if I got caught with any of the weapons that he had in his house, obliterated serial number, large capacity magazine, I would spend the rest of my life in prison. No question. No question. And you would probably get minimum of 10 and probably more than that. The number of guns come into play, the magazines come into play, the obliterated serial numbers. You don't get rid of an obliterated serial number because you're going to go hunting with that weapon. You don't remove a serial number because you intend to defend your house with that weapon. There's only two reasons somebody gets rid of a serial number. Number one, they stole the weapon, right? This guy had a lot of money. I don't think he needed to buy stolen weapons. Number two, you wanted to be able to throw it down at a crime scene and not have it traced. If you were doing something illegal and the gun ends up lost or whatever, it's never going to be traced back to you. And by the way, it never works. No joke. The pressure that it takes to stamp a serial number into the steel on a weapon, no matter what you do to obliterate it, they're always able to lift that back up. Honestly, I knew a bunch of people in prison over the time I did there who were in and had obliterated serial numbers, and they were always able to still get it. He wants to go home to Miami. Will they let him? I doubt it, but I don't know. Elizabeth Holmes was able to go home until and then she had to go and turn herself in. That it has happened with people in the past, but Subramanian was not ready to let him out because he was a flight risk. Nothing has changed in terms of all of the reasons that he kept him in, right? He's still a danger to all of those people that were witnesses. He's still a flight risk, right? All of the things that kept them from giving him bail the first time and the second time, I don't think they're going to give him bail now. I think, now you're guilty. Sit your happy ass down and get ready to go to prison. The reason that they let people out is to get their affairs in order. I mean, He's got a crew of people to get his affairs in order. I don't think he needs to do that. This would be a vacation, a chance for him to party, do drugs, and maybe harm people. I don't think, I'll be shocked. Honestly, I'll be shocked if they give him bail, but it could happen. I'm a little shocked about the outcome. The fact the guns were not a charge shows it was mainly to ruin his reputation and humiliate him. He definitely pissed off the wrong person or the wrong company, right? Tell me, what about all the other charges for the girls he messed with? All of those are civil. All of those are civil. And I'll tell you something, I took a lot of time to read a lot of those civil lawsuits, and I'll tell you something. There are a lot of them that are just awful. I mean, when you read them, you just can't possibly believe that they're real, right? The other option on that could be that those guns were left back just in case, like an insurance policy. Take care, Marie. Thank you. Won't he be more of a danger now if he is out? Gordon Jackson, you would assume that anybody with that much on the ball would think exactly what you're thinking, right? I think Judge Subramanian has that much on the ball. I think he's a pretty sharp guy. And I think that he's still a flight risk from hell. I don't think he wants to do 20 years or 10 for that matter. But I think they're going to run these things one right after the other. I think that they're not going to let him just do the 10. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but Judge said it made sense to release him on bail, asked for case law to remand act. Lisa Ayers, I would have to take your word for it. I haven't heard any of the stuff coming out. Are you saying that Judge Subramanian said that, or another judge said that? Because I watched a panel of lawyers say they're definitely going to give him bail. I did a show on it that night and said no chance in hell they're going to give him bail. They're just not, and they didn't. If I was a witness, I'd go underground or get security right now. Here's the thing. Some of them can, right? Some of them can't. Cassie can afford a security detail, but it's scary, isn't it? And it goes, you know, we've talked about this before. It's like 6 out of 10 people don't report rapes, you know, and this is sure going to help that number, isn't it? This is sure going to help that number. So Judge Subramanian said today that it makes sense to give him bail. Well, I'll be damned. I think if they give him bail, he's going to run. I do. I think if they give him bail, he's going to run. And I'll tell you what, if they give him bail and he doesn't run, he's going to regret bailing himself out before he goes, honestly. For real. Just coming to you as a convict, right? Just coming to you as a convict. Do your time. Don't try to put it off. You're in the mindset right now of doing time. You've been sitting in, for all intent and purpose, a prison cell. That's not a prison, but it's the exact same size. Can I talk about the Mann Act? The Mann Act is taking someone across state lines for the purpose of having sex. And it's a law that in the past has been traditionally used to go after black people. If we're just going to keep it real, in the United States of America, it was a viciously misused law. Chuck Berry was charged with it. A couple of famous boxers were charged with it. It was just a way for the government to mess with black folk back in the day. It really was. Unfortunately, this trial could make victims not come forward. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Little Miss Sunshine says, oh, for sure he'll run. He's got enough money to stay gone. I don't know that, you know, we live in such a strange world now that somebody as recognizable as him, I think he would have a problem staying gone. But I agree with you. I think he'll run. I think he would run like the wind. I think he would run like the wind. If you really are intending to do time, well, then do your time, right? Do your time. If you're intending on it, you've been in there since September of last year. Now you want to go home, do a bunch of dope, right? By the way, if you did get bail, when you're out on bail, you have to report to court services, right? And while reporting to court services, they're going to force you to take a drug test weekly. He'd have an ankle monitor so that if you cut that, they know about it instantly. But I know guys that managed to run with an ankle monitor on. I don't know anybody that ever got away for any length of time, but I knew people who ran. One guy made it, I think, 7 or 8 months before they caught him. He sure as hell didn't have the amount of money that Diddy has access to, right? Wow, if he does run, he's got some cojones. If he runs, it could add more time to his sentence, right? And they're going to find him. You just can't. I mean, how do you disappear if you're Sean Combs? For real. I mean, if you're Bill Walker from Minnesota, you could probably disappear. This is one of the most recognizable men now on the planet. He's not going to run. He thinks he's untouchable now with what he's gotten away with. Just my opinion, says Angel. I don't think so. Let's say the guy gets 2 10s, right? He's going to be 75 when he gets out. If they run them one right after the other, if they run them at the same time, he's going to be about 65 when he gets out. I can't see him being able to do it. Time says, wouldn't surprise me if all he got now was time served and probation. Who'd run from that? You can't get probation. They're not going to give him probation on this thing. There are so few crimes in the federal system that are probationable. Like if you look up the federal sentencing guideline sheets, only the first, I think, 3 levels are. But you know what? Who the hell knows? I'll tell you right now, and this is the truth. I have less faith in the justice system of the United States of America than in anything else on earth. For real. You know, all it took was idiots from YouTube reaching out and saying I was involved in human trafficking, right? That they had to investigate me, right? Because some people on YouTube wanted to troll me. We have a justice system in the U.S. that is broken beyond repair. And if this isn't a damn good example of it, I don't know what is. I would really love to hear what went on in that jury room. I would really love to hear why they asked the judge, hey, we have somebody in here that won't follow jury instructions. Somebody please explain to me what instructions he wasn't following, he or she. I shouldn't assume it's a he, right? It is his first offense, but he has been arrested and charged on so many things, right? He has. And I don't think it is his first offense. There was no. I would have to look that up. So there were no charges at all because he's been to court on 3 or 4 different occasions. Here's a question you're going to hear more in the next couple of days than you're going to hear anything else, right? For real. What about all the other celebs that were named? Nothing came of it. What about the children? Why did no one talk about the children? Well, One Love. This is such a difficult thing, right? And I'm just going to go with honesty on this one and take it on the chin at a later date. When this case broke, right? That's what I was saying, Time. I think there was something. It may not have been big, but there was something that came from the 9 people that he killed, right? Through his negligence at that celebrity basketball game at Sunny, the college in New York. But Where did those celebs' names come from? Honestly, when this trial started, there was a group of people on YouTube who allegedly knew him really well, and they became celebs. And they talked a lot, and a lot of people, including myself, gave them a lot of credibility. And it started to gain momentum, and it got to the point where there was nobody on planet Earth that hadn't been to a Diddy party, right? And I talked about this. If you guys are just, if you haven't seen me in a long time, I've actually talked about this before, and said that if I do true crime ever in the future, this was, by the way before the sentencing, but I said if I ever do true crime again, I'm not going to get sucked up into the I don't know what to call it, right? In this one, we called it the Diddy verse, but in the feeding frenzy, right? In the feeding frenzy that went on. I'm not saying anybody's names, but you could name off at the top of your head 4 or 5 people who are ludicrously famous because of what they can tell us about this guy's life. And do we really know how much of that was, for, I don't know. I have become super uncomfortable because I have realized how quickly someone can say something on the internet that has zero basis in fact, zero basis in truth. And I'm not saying that everything they said about Diddy was BS, but a lot of the lawsuits that were brought by that cat in Texas were complete and utter BS. And if you read them, anybody that read them could go, good Lord. The jury was made primarily of middle to later age misogynistic men. I think we all would have seen this coming had the trial been televised. Interesting. Interesting. It's, I don't know. I am guilty of, getting really wrapped up in the early days of the Diddy thing. If we just look at everything that happened, the book that came out, that and whether or not that book was BS or whether that book was real, and then Courtney Burgess situation, where Courtney Burgess allegedly had these, he had 8 videotapes, right? 8 thumb drives allegedly, or whatever. When all that was going on, somebody sent me some pictures that allegedly had come off of one of those thumb drives. And I talked about this on this channel. And I said, I would never show one of these photos. They don't look real to me. I mean, it looked like somebody pulled stuff off of a porn site and superimposed J-Lo's face on it. And then we went from there to, all right, now let's get Jay-Z. And this wave, and I'm not saying Diddy isn't guilty, people. I think he is. But I think that there's a lot of backlash when you build something up to a point where, so the jury wasn't sequestered, right? I think the jury was waiting for the prosecution to tell us how Ellen DeGeneres was involved, right? Because we heard she didn't miss one. How was Oprah Winfrey involved, right? She was at all the Diddy parties, right? Don't we need to see all these stars? This was going to be, there was nobody in Hollywood that wasn't guilty. There were tunnels throughout all of LA. There were tunnels that had Starbucks in them. Do you remember this? That jury heard all that too. And then you go in and what you see is actually just a legitimate prosecution against a guy for the crimes that he committed. But that's not what the world was waiting for. We wanted to know if Will Smith ever did anything wrong, right? We wanted to know which stars went to Diddy parties. Because we were meant to believe that when there was the Diddy party and the after party. And at the after party, they were sacrificing children. I'm not being a wise ass. They were literally sacrificing children. I've watched those videos. I know you have. And by the way, whether or not it happened, I don't know. But one of the reasons that, I mean, I had a change of heart about true crime. And this, if you haven't been here in a long time, then this may be the first time you're hearing it and you're thinking, well, you know, that verdict will do that to you. I've been talking about this since before they started, before the trial even started. It started to get so out of control. And the click thing, the YouTube thing, everybody had to one up the previous story. You know, everybody had to one up the previous story. And, you know, when Courtney Burgess came on the scene, I was terrified. I really was. Right around that time, I started to go, wait a second. This doesn't make any sense at all. This doesn't make any sense. You know, Kim Porter decided to send her book to a dude that she had never met, right? Or had seen at a party because his reputation was solid. So it just started to get crazy. And there are things that I can say that are just assumed to be facts because we heard it so many times, right? Like Diddy allegedly ordered Kim Porter's casket a year before he killed her, right? Well, if that's the truth, but no one knows what the truth is. And I got super, super wrapped up in it. And then it happened to me. For real, then it happened to me. You know, things started to be said about me that that I couldn't prove, right? Because if somebody, you know, says something that didn't happen, how do you prove that it didn't happen? It's kind of terrifying. And I said, I'm never gonna. I will report on things in the future, and I will, and I might get super pissed, but I'm not going to take the word of anybody. I'm not going to get swept up ever again. I'm not. I sure as hell did. Maybe some of the jurors will speak. Karen Reed had an intelligent and informative jury. Boy, Lumen, didn't they? I mean, honestly, didn't they? And thank God they did, because that woman could have gone to prison for something that she sure as hell didn't do. That's but it's you can't walk away from that and go, that's justice. See, there is justice in the United States, right? Or there is justice in the legal system. You can't do that. And you know why you can't do that? Because of the amount of cash that she had to spend to defend herself. Do you think that there is a chance? Yeah. See, I wonder how much the entire trial cost. How much did the government spend getting Combs to court? Gazillions. So I suspect they aren't finished with him yet. They need to justify that cost. Time, I agree with you. And I agree with you for the reasons that you say. I don't think they're done with him, and I think that they're not done with him because they're going to be humiliated. They spent a lot of money, and they're going to be pissed. And there are things like those guns. There's a lot of things that they didn't bring in because when they chose to go RICO, they were going to bring in predicate acts, but they didn't charge them with it, and they narrowed the scope. It doesn't mean they can't charge him now. And people will yell double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is being found not guilty for shooting that microphone and then being charged again for shooting that microphone, right? It's literally being charged for something you've already been found not guilty on. So you're going to hear a lot of people start screaming about they could never bring him to court for anything after this because it would be double jeopardy. They couldn't charge him for the same crime, but they can charge him for all kinds of other ones. There's definitely sexual assault crimes throughout this whole trial, but that is not really what he was charged for. It's interesting because we're going to hear a lot of people say that where they made the mistakes in what? Little Miss Sunshine, have a good day at work, and I will tell my brother you said hello. There's going to be a lot of discussion about whether or not the federal government screwed up in terms of the charges in this. We're going to hear a lot about that. We really are. One thing I will say is this. If no matter what happens, this man's life is over. He is not ever going to live the way that he did. In fact, he is a pariah among pariahs. And this prison sentence it's not going from the penthouse to the outhouse, right? He was an emperor. He was a king. He lived the life that he wanted, right? In every way. He did, and I'm not meaning, I'm not buying into every single thing that they charged him, that they were trying to charge him with. When the press conference happened, and that slick attorney from Texas, I wanted so badly to believe every single thing he said. And then you started to read the cases. But he came out and told the world in a press conference, Sean Combs' youngest victim is 9. There's another victim that is 15. And me, right? Me. I was so ready to bury this guy that I didn't go. A parent of a 9-year-old, right, said to I'm going to let this rock star take my kid and disappear, with him for a while. That my critical thinking went out the window. I don't know if it happened to everybody. It sure as crap happened to me. Right? They said Diddy is getting released at 1 p.m. Their time. Well, we will see if that is the case. I don't know. We'll see. If he is, that doesn't mean he's free, folks. It means he's free until sentencing. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. But I'll tell you something. I'm going to be going to check some things out like the rest of you. I do not pop up live feeds while I'm on my channel. I don't. It's not the kind of content I do. But I am sure I'm going to be talking about this case more. The ramifications, right? What this means. I agree, Kellyanne. This to me seems like the kind of guy that would exact revenge, right? I really believe that, and that's frightening. It's frightening. Yeah, they're going to be scared when he gets out and they're free. Yeah, I believe that. Look, you know something? We watched him, right? No allegedly about it. We watched him punch, kick, and drag a woman by the hair, right, down a hallway in a hotel. There's no getting around that, right? That wasn't made up. And did they charge this wrong? Boy, oh boy, man! You'd like to think that doing that to a woman would get you 20 years, right? Wouldn't you? Shows you can beat a girl, have it on tape, and still get away with it. He is still in custody at the moment. Someone just said, Cricket, that he's being released at 1. I can't back that up. I can't. I know that we're in the same I'm in the same time zone. So that would be 1 hour. I find that hard to believe, because if that is the case, then there are no restrictions. You know what I mean? That the bail package is just, yeah, we're going to let you out, go do what you do. Maybe a travel restriction and an ankle monitor. I think even under the best of circumstances and you're not famous, that would be a process that would take more than a day. So, I won't be surprised if new charges are filed. Me either. Now, the statute of limitations ran out on the beating that we saw on tape. Honestly, I think, and maybe that should never happen. Maybe that kind of thing should not have a statute of limitations. Maybe that would be something that could come out of this, right? Because, I mean, Cassie got a lot of money from Sean Combs. What she didn't get was justice. I was thinking going forward, he also has some Florida charges with guns having serial numbers filed off. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be a Florida case. That is a federal offense, not a state crime. So the feds, however, can still charge him for those guns. They could, if they decide to do that. Now, I don't know why they didn't as part of this, Maybe it was an ace in a hole. Who knows? Christy Wolf says, I don't see any charges being filed again, and you may be right. I feel like Alice in Wonderland. Everything is upside down. I'm really interested to hear what they were talking about in that jury room. You know, they sent a letter out to the judge saying, there's a juror back here that won't follow jury instructions. What do we do? That sounds bad to me. And maybe because I am a cynic. That's not been confirmed. Judge asked for case law by one. Okay, I gotcha. Thank you, Lisa Ayers. That makes more sense. So the judge, and you know something? This is exactly what Subramanian said when they were trying to do bail last time. If you remember, he said, I'm absolutely willing to entertain that. So will it be up to the judge for sentencing? It will be, but it's going to go sentencing guideline sheets. So it's going to go by that. And then the judge has some latitude that he can do. Starts off with a sentencing guideline sheet. And the judge, it gives you, like, for instance, bank robbery without the use of a weapon, first offense, carries somewhere between 60 months to 120 months. It's not real, but I'm giving you that. And the judge can go anywhere in between there. If the judge wants to go above the guidelines, he has to give written notice to the defendant's legal team that he intends to sentence above the guidelines, which can happen. It can. I mean, it does. But now the process goes like this. They're going to do what's called a PSR, a pre-sentence report. And Christy Wolf, probation in the feds is almost, if you look at the federal sentencing guideline sheets, it's not like the state. It really isn't. It's a very, very different thing. And was it really a jury of his peers? There's no such thing. There's no such thing. There isn't. This is going to sound crazy, but I hope we get to a day in that country where the jury is made up of people who aren't people. Right? I think AI would be a much better jury because all of us bring stuff in there that we shouldn't. Why do the feds sentence in months and not years? That's an excellent question, Renee B., and I don't know the answer to it. Maybe because they just want to bum out the inmate and make it sound longer. Can they try the sexual assault or abuse cases in Florida? You betcha. You betcha. Yeah, those are not federal offenses. You understand? So if a person that rapes somebody in Florida, that's a state crime. Could Florida charge him with things like that? You bet. So could any of the other states where he was allegedly guilty of any of these things. Though, you know, but those are not federal offenses. Murder isn't a federal offense, right? That's a state crime in whatever state you did in it, unless you kill somebody and you bring them across state lines, or you cross state lines to kill somebody. It is very, very confusing. What's probation exactly in a federal case? So probation in a federal case is what you do after you get out. So you get a 5-year prison sentence. At the end of your 5 years, you have to do a 3-year probation term, where while you're on the street, you have to report to a probation officer. It's backwards in the feds. In the state, probation means you're not going to prison. They gave you a better sentence where you have it holding over your head like Damocles' sword, and if you screw up, then they're going to send you back. Thank you, Archie's mom. I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you. It was the difference in the ages of the jury. I think it was 50 to 70 years of age. That's odd. We all have biases. A lot of times we don't realize that they are even there. Kellyanne, I want to tell you something. You're right. I watched a terrifying YouTube video where they showed people who watched a crime on a TV screen, right? Like you're watching me now. And they're told just to watch this video. And then afterwards they said, okay, can you describe what happened? And when they were given an opportunity to say, you know, who did what was the person's skin color, things like that, people walk in with biases they don't know they have. And that is real. I I have said on the channel a million times, I think if the legal system wanted to ever be repaired, and I don't think that's ever going to happen, I really don't. But if that legal system was ever to be repaired, then the jury shouldn't be able to see the person who's on trial. Because I promise you, if you walk in to trial and your entire neck is tattooed, right? From here down, you're guilty. You're screwed, right? Which would lead more inmates maybe shouldn't get tattoos. But people make decisions based on how you look. That's why they will never let a jury see you in prison clothes until after you have been found guilty. Because if you walk in wearing those stripes, obviously he's a criminal, he's wearing stripes. We are those kind of people. We are those kind of people. Renee B., you and me both. Yeah, neck tattoos are not helpful to anybody's case. And I'm not saying that, could they indict him on new charges as they make proposals for bail? They could do anything. They could do anything. I don't see that happening. If they do, one of the problems I think for the prosecution in this is that they had to put this case together in a very short period of time. Normally, I don't care what it is. Look, even pleading guilty, it took me 14 months before I could get into court and plead guilty and get sentenced. 14 months. This guy went to trial and was done before he had been in there a year. It's unheard of. It's unheard of. It really is. Race is a thing too. It really is. It is. And anyone that says it isn't, if you got, it should be one of those things. I'm telling you, every once in a while now, someone sent me a letter the other day, and this may sound crazy, but somebody sent me a letter, and I said, I feel stupid. I really feel like I'm not, like my brain isn't firing on all cylinders. And I literally asked AI to read the letter and tell me what they thought. Am I misreading this, or is this person being rude? Right? And AI answered for me. Obviously somebody programmed it, but I think that we would be better off if AI was judging people without bringing in all of the biases or all of the, biases one way or the other, right? Maybe we had some people on that jury that just love P. Diddy. Maybe they dig his music, right? Now you go through the voir dire process. It's supposed to get rid of those people. But on cases like this, there were people who wanted on that jury, right? There are people that wanted on that jury. You could write a book, even if you have someone else writing the book, you're going to make a ton of money. There are people that normally everybody wants to get out of jury duty, right? They're trying to figure out. Big joke inside federal prison, people would say, always makes you feel good to know that your life is in the hands of 12 people not smart enough to figure out how to get out of jury duty. Everyone tries to get out of jury duty. Hey, Jake, you know what? I agree with you. Are he and his son not being charged with another rape? You can go ahead and say it. I don't care if they demonetize me. I'm not playing that stupid game anymore. I'm not. I can't stand it. Trying to play those things where, they could. Yes, there is a woman whose name is, I've been out of this for so long, people, I apologize. Omarki. A woman whose last name is Omarki. She worked on a yacht that Sean Combs was renting for a period of time, and it had a makeshift studio on it. I know that his son is absolutely charged in a sexual assault on that woman, or is being sued, I think is the case. I don't know what's up with the dad. Allegedly intelligent. I'll tell you what, Kelly, smarter than me. And you may be right, but smarter than me. If there wasn't a jury and Judge Arun had to call the verdict, what do you think he would have done? I think he'd have sent him to life in prison. if this was the judge and there was no jury, the judge understands RICO. The judge understands predicate crimes. And you can read somebody jury instructions. They just can't wait to get back there and start talking. Right? They just can't wait to get into the process. They're tuning out. They're thinking about the judge. If in my opinion, if this was in the hands of the judge, he'd be doing life in prison. One Love says money talks. And as the guy from New Jack City, who, by the way, is in the feds, the guy, Nino Brown, it's not the real name, but the guy they based that movie on, New Jack City. Wesley Snipes played him. In real life, he's like 5'4", really soft-spoken guy I actually met. He cannot change the jury's verdict. The jury's verdict is sacrosanct. It's etched in stone. Once the jury has said that, there's no turning back. You know what could happen though, right? If they find out that one of these jurors was paid off, I don't know the can of shit. Really trying to work on that. I don't know the can of worms that would open up, but it would be a can of worms. Between now and the next time I see you, I'm going to do a little bit of research on that. But I have an appointment, folks, that I have to get to here in Salinas. There's a big race going on right under my balcony, which I would like to take a look at as well. But do we need a swear jar? No, here we just drop. We're doing push-ups instead. But yeah, maybe I need one on the Love Boat. Please stop back and see me. I promise I'll be weighing in on this. And the next time I will have gathered a lot more information. I wanted to come here and tell people what's going on, but I will be weighing in on this after I hear what everybody says, and hopefully we're gonna get a little bit of info as to what was going on in that jury room. Time, thank you. And I appreciate all of you stopping back in. It means the world to me. I mean that. Between now and the next time I see you, put a little love in your heart. Da, da, da.